Today, FanDuel TV brings you 3 pivotal prep races on the road to the Kentucky Derby. From Aqueduct, New York action includes the Grade 3 Gotham. At Gulfstream, it's the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth.
And they're off in the Fountain of Youth stage.
And out west at Santa Anita, the Grade 2 San Felipe, with the winner of each race receiving 50 Derby qualifying points. Play today on the FanDuel Racing app.
Welcome into the FanDuel TV studios on an absolutely super Saturday. Thank you for joining us on FanDuel TV. Thank you for joining us on the social media show as well. If you're out there watching on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, however you're watching us, we're so thrilled you're with us here on a very super Saturday. Well, the 151st Kentucky Derby, we're just a couple of months away. Can you feel the buildup? March 1st is kicking things off in a huge way. We've got racing across the country, across the globe. We still have some races at Maidan to get to as well on their Super Saturday card. But here in America, Kentucky Derby preps, we're going to Aqueduct, Ozone Park, New York for the Gotham Stakes, a Grade 3 race. That's kicking things off at 4:18 Eastern time there on the East Coast. They also have the Busher Stakes for the Kentucky Oaks. Gulfstream Park, where we've got a lovely crew that we'll check in with in a little bit. They've got the Fountain of Youth Stakes, part of a jam-packed 9 stakes card. The late pick 5, all graded stakes, and the Fountain of Youth, the big key. And of course, out here in California at the great race place, Santa Anita Park, the San Felipe Stakes, part of a jam-packed pick 4. It also includes the Grade 1 Kill Row Mile and the Grade 1 Big Cap. So huge day of racing. Maidan, Aqueduct, Gulfstream, Santa Anita Park. You pick it, we're covering it. And here are the lists of stakes races for Fountain of Youth Day today at Gulfstream Park. Like I said, 9 stakes races. Starting with race 7, it's just all stakes from there on out. But race 4 is going to kick things off with the stakes action, the Grade 3. Here Comes the Bride, starting at 1:01 Eastern, so just about 2 hours away from that. The Fountain of Youth Stakes is the featured event. Race 13 on a 14 race card. That comes up at 5:42 Eastern, 2:42 Pacific. So 4.5 hours roughly until we get to this race. A couple scratches to talk about. The 4 and the 5 both are going to be out, but we had the 5 horse ran on Thursday in a 1 1/8 race at Gulfstream Park. And then we have a huge horse, River Thames, for Todd Pletcher. He's undefeated in 2 starts. We're going to see, can he stretch out to 2 turns for the first time? Don't sleep on the Dale Romans horse. Keep it easy on the outside there. Horse will be tackling 2 turns for the first time, but we've seen Dale Romans sneak up and pick up a win in this race before. As I mentioned, the Fountain of Youth Stakes, 50 points to the winner for the Kentucky Derby. And we're looking at River Thames on the right. How about Burnham Square? What has he done wrong his last 2 starts? He added blinkers, went to Gulfstream Park, and got Edgar Zayas. Is it one of those things too? All 3 of those combinations, this horse undefeated in his last 2 starts, both here at Gulfstream Park. They're both going to be short on the morning line. And don't forget about Sovereignty. We've got a horse coming back for Bill Mott, making his 3-year-old debut. Can Sovereignty build off of that super impressive finish to 2024? We'll find out in about 4.5 hours in the Fountain of Youth. Let's talk a little bit more about River Thames, though. This is my top play in the Fountain of Youth. John Velasquez, Todd Pletcher. This is a horse whose future seems to be unstoppable. Let's check in for more information.
Stretching across southern England, the River Thames is a prominent landmark flowing for more than 200 miles. Its course weaves through charming villages and the bustling city of London. Given its iconic status, it's only fitting that a racehorse would bear the name River Thames.
River Thames took off. River Thames has a gear the others don't have. Proves his debut run was the real deal.
Now this unbeaten colt, trained by Todd Pletcher, jumps on the Derby Trail in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. And all indications are that he's a promising prospect for the first Saturday in May.
Well, what does River Thames have in store today? We'll find out in a little bit. That was Anthony Pascal's voice you heard. We'll check in with him later, but first we'll take you out to Larry and Matt. Another gorgeous looking day trackside at Gulfstream, guys.
Curtis, I mean, I don't know how you could possibly complain about this weather. 80 degrees, sunny. I joked earlier, we were on a little thread with Christina Black, or maybe other than a little bit of a lather that I've worked up, no complaints. How could you? It's Fountain of Youth Day.
Yeah, it is definitely a gorgeous day for racing. Perfection as far as the weather, perfection as far as the card. It is going to be so much fun today. We talked about those 9 stakes races, but even the races that aren't stakes races are fantastic today, too.
This opener in 19 minutes' time, this is a race that I think a lot of people expect there to be future stakes horses coming out of. And we've got the connections from left and right, and there is an overwhelming favorite right now. But, I mean, this is the kind of race that, for all we know, you could be looking at horses that down the road, as 3-year-olds, you can see them in some of these big stakes races.
I mentioned yesterday on the air that in a lot of these maiden races today, you're going to see very high-quality horses because these horses, they like to showcase them on the big days.
Yep.
And that's why a horse like Clicquot, who's the heavy favorite in the first race, is running today. It should be an interesting maiden race and some other really good maiden races later, too.
Yeah, good general rule of thumb. On a big day when you've got maiden races or high-level allowance races, the barns are rolling out the big ones. They want to go out there and kind of show off a little bit. So we'll dive into race 1 in a little bit, but let's talk about the big one. The Fountain of Youth, 50 qualifying points awarded to the winner as far as the starting gate is concerned for the Kentucky Derby. And we do have a couple of defections, not surprises. One horse ran earlier this week, the other one's not going to run here, period. Leaves us with a field of 6, Larry. The morning line favorite is the 6, River Thames, one of 2 in here for trainer Todd Pletcher. Burnham Square, the winner of the Holy Bull, I would argue is actually the horse to beat.
I would say for sure he's the horse to beat because to me, he's the horse to beat in the entire Kentucky Derby picture right now. I loved his Holy Bull, and the race before that, he's just a flat-out runner, Matt. And Ian Wilkes has talked about this over and over, that this horse has so much stamina, he has no distance limitations, and that's why I feel a little stronger about first Saturday in May than I do today. But I think he's still good enough to do it today.
If today were the Kentucky Derby, I'd pick Burnham Square.
Right.
Today is not the Kentucky Derby.
Correct.
I'll take a little bit of a shot
Mile and a
against
16th.
But I'll tell you what, his win in the Holy Bull was spectacular. Let's take a look at that performance.
Welcome to Hallandale Beach, Florida at Gulfstream Park, one of the biggest races in the country. It is the Grade 3 Holy Bull.
And there's Burnham Square, who definitely was impressive in his most recent win.
All indications are the farther the race, the better for him.
He's got to step up. The water gets deeper, so we've got to find out how good he is.
Who is going to win the Holy Bull? We are about to find out.
They're off in the Holy Bull.
Well, last time he broke pretty sharp, and I was close to the pace, so I was expecting to have the same trip, but it didn't work out that way. So I just dropped to a rail and just, sit to a rail and see what happened, and everything unfolded pretty good.
He just has that energy, the stamina. He doesn't stop. He doesn't get tired.
Burnham Square tries to bridge the gap, and he starts to gain a bit of ground. Ferocious is flattening out.
Just when you thought you counted him out, he comes around and comes flying.
Burnham Square under a full head of steam, and he runs by to take the lead with a 16th to go.
The deeper in the stretch, the faster you got it, so I'm excited about the roses. Hopefully, step by step, he needs to keep maturing and keep improving.
But Ian Wilkes trainee Burnham Square, who wins the Holy Bull, going away under Edgar Zayas. If you didn't recognize Burnham Square as a serious Kentucky Derby contender, you better after today.
He's my Derby horse.
Oh, you're
right now. Right now.
You know it's February.
I do, and I'm gonna.
The Derby's in May.
He's my Derby horse.
Planting that flag right and early,
it's
huh?
Still there.
Yeah, I mean, look,
it's still there.
I don't know what there is to knock about him. He's
Nothing.
proven from off the pace. He's proven from up pressing it. The key to this horse, Larry, we heard from Ian Wilkes really prior to the run in the Holy Bull, was that early in his career, he wouldn't do the rider any favors.
Correct.
He would just sort of run in spots. He wouldn't get involved early. They put blinkers on him, and he's turned into a different animal.
He was kind of like that since he was a little guy, too.
Yeah.
They said that's why they gelded him early on, because he just wasn't going to make it as a racehorse if they didn't. But since then, he continues to learn. He's not there yet. That's the thing. That we just saw an incredible amount of ability in the Holy Bull, and he's not there yet. He just keeps getting better, and he's getting smarter in addition to growing. And, man, I just love everything about it. There's a quote from Ian Wilkes. He's completely changed with the blinkers on. Before, he wouldn't even run beside horses. Now he's more tractable.
I think the other thing that shouldn't be lost on a horse like this, I know a lot of people are a little bit leery. This track is so different than Churchill Downs, that when you have success here in the winter and then you go to Louisville for the first Saturday in May, is it going to translate? His run at Churchill Downs, I would argue, was before the blinkers. The way he finished down the center of the racetrack, that track ain't a problem for him.
Oh, no, no.
So I think that the sky's the limit for him. Now, if you're someone who just purely looks at speed figures, there is a little bit of a juxtaposition between something like the Buyers, who's a little bit light, where everything else he's pretty fast on. So you need to make the determination as the handicapper what you want to do with him.
Yeah, Thoroughgraph, he actually ran faster than River Thames.
Yep.
And Buyer, it's the other way around.
So, and again, there's a lot that goes into how the figs are made, and at the end of the day, the figures are a tool. You, as the handicapper, need to decide what you want to do with them.
Eyeballed. He just looks like the type, you know?
If you're someone who is just purely a numbers player, the most interesting horse in the race is Gate to Wire.
Right.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't entirely know where the swale came from. I had a chance to interview Todd Pletcher immediately after, and he said this was a bit of an experiment. We wanted to run in an allowance that didn't fill, so we decided to come here. I've heard many people bring up that he had an ideal setup in this race.
Not really.
I could not disagree more. He was 2 lengths off of a 43 4.5 mile. And if you want to say, oh, well, the final eighth of a mile was 13 2, well, to be fair, anybody that goes that fast is going to be a little bit tired at the end. But he's still extending here. The gallop out was nil. There was none. So I'm not going to argue with anyone that says he's not going to run a lick past 7 furlongs. But if you're ever going to find out, isn't today the day? He's going to be 6 or 7 to 1. He's got the fastest number on Thoroughgraph. He comes into this race with a 2. On Timeform US, he's clearly the fastest in the race. And on Buyer, he's got one of the fastest races. I'm not trying to tell you that he is a slam dunk in here. I'm not telling you he's a Kentucky Derby horse. But if you're ever going to get the job done at 2 turns at 1 mile and a 16th, it's going to be here.
Right. No, it makes perfect sense, especially the fact that he's drawn the rail, too. So he's got a lot going for him for today. I agree that he's not going to go much farther than this, if he can go this far.
If he can even do that.
If he can do that, but I agree with you. If you're gonna take a shot on him, why not today?
Yeah, and again, that's the context. If I needed to make a Derby pick today, I would pick Burnham Square.
Right.
They're running the Fountain of Youth today.
Yeah, not the Derby.
I'm going to take a little bit of a shot there with the one Gate to Wire and hope that I think there's also a chance he can make the lead. I mean, look, he's coming out of that race.
He could, yeah.
You're Dylan Davis. Just go.
I would.
Just go with him. So that's the Fountain of Youth. That's for the boys. The Davona Dale comes up a little bit earlier for the girls. Now, the unique thing about the 3-year-old filly path here through Gulfstream is we still yet to see a 2-turn race. We're going to be going a 1-turn mile here this afternoon in the Davona Dale, and Lacara at 8 to 5 is the morning line favorite, but Ballerina Doro, the buzz surrounding this filly has been immense for a long, long time. I loved her if she was going to run at the fairgrounds, but unfortunately she spiked a little bit of a fever, had to miss that spot. She shows up here. There's your tail of the tape, the head-to-head matchup between the two, Dylan Davis aboard Lacara. You're going to have Tyler Gaffalione aboard Ballerina Doro. You and I chatted a little bit. My fear with Ballerina Doro today is just simply her running style.
Yeah, she's going to have to, well, maybe not have to, but I would think the way this racetrack at Gulfstream generally plays, that her way behind style is going to hurt her. But that's how she runs so far. Maybe Tyler Gaffalione and Chad are going to do something different today. It's tougher to do what she's done here at Gulfstream.
The beauty of this game also is you need to be able to acknowledge when your opinion or your feelings were incorrect about a horse.
Yep.
And adapt on the fly. I've always liked Ballerina Doro. I wasn't the biggest fan of Lacara. And then her run at Tampa Bay Downs in the Suncoast. This, to me, was a spectacular performance.
Yep.
She left no questions about how good she is had she moved on from 2 to 3. This was the first time I looked down and said, wow, that's an Oaks filly.
Yeah, won by 6 1/4 here under Dylan Davis. It was a tremendous performance, and I thought it was interesting that Dylan Davis also has been the rider of Ballerina Doro, and he is riding Lacara. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he thinks Lacara is better. He rides a lot for Mark Cassie, and maybe he's just committed because of that, but he did have he did ride both of those 2 fillies last time out. I didn't pick either one of them. I picked Queen's MG.
Is that right?
Yeah. I thought that her last race is going to set her up and put her in a good spot for this race. And she's got some really, really good back numbers, including her monster effort in the Adirondack in the summer. She came back here in the Forward Gala on February the 1st, and she made a nice move in the middle of the race. Just got a little tired late, and I think with that under her belt, she's gonna be okay for Safi.
And I think if you look at what the main players in here want to do, we just saw Lacara in that Suncoast 2 turns. Ballerina Doro, I think longer is better. The Queen's MG, this 1-turn mile is probably the sweet spot for her.
Right, here's that forward gal we were talking about. This was 7 furlongs. So the 7 furlong distance, I think, is probably pretty good for her, but that day she was a little short. You know, she just wasn't 100% ready to go against these horses. She ran a respectable 3rd in there. And I guess a mile is a little bit of a question mark now. I think I would have been happier if this was 7/8 for her, but a 1-turn mile is not a huge difference to me.
You know what, though, the dynamic of the way that race unfolded, you mentioned the layoff. The pace was pretty lively.
Yeah.
She made a bit of an early move.
Yeah.
You saw Eclatant come over the top on the outside on that left lead. I think all things considered, again, if you look at that as nothing more than a stepping stone, she certainly got fitness out of that.
Yep.
I would think you get the best version of her today. Now, is it good enough to run with Lacara or Ballerina Doro? Who knows? But
we'll find out.
I still maintain they're playing her game. This 1-turn configuration, I think, is far more suited to the legs of the Queen's MG or Frida than it is to a Lacara or Ballerina Doro, where those connections, I can't speak for anyone. I would think that Lacara and Ballerina Doro, the big long-term goal is the first Friday in May.
Sure.
For some of these other connections with some of these other fillies in here, the 1-turn races are probably going to end up being the goal. The 8 bells, things like that.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
A couple of big prep races coming up later on this afternoon. The Davona Dale for the girls, and then obviously the big one, the Fountain of Youth, coming up as race number 13 for the boys. We'll get you back here to Gulfstream Park in just a few moments. 8 minutes until the opener. For now, we send it back to Curtis Callaward in the studio.
Matt, Larry, thanks so much. Yeah, we'll get back out to you in just a little bit because your opener's almost here. Well, talking about Santa Anita Park, they've got a big race car going on today, the Big Cap, the Kilroe Mile, but all eyes going to be on this San Felipe Stakes, specifically trainer Bob Baffert. He's won this race 9 times. He's got 3 horses entered, Mellencamp, Barnes, Rodriguez, but they're all going to have to take on a returning colt by Curlin from the Michael McCarthy barn named Journalism. Mile and a 16th will be the distance on a fast main track, hoping that all 6 horses entered will run. Otherwise, we're not running for 100% of these Kentucky Derby points, but it sounds like we'll get all 6 of them into the starting gate. Barnes is your current favorite on the morning line at even money, but Rodriguez with Flavian Prat in town to ride for the day. He is 9-5, a good second last time out behind Citizen Bull. Like I mentioned, it's Journalism versus the Baffert Brigade. Barnes leads that brigade, and you take a look at the tail of the tape. Best career buyer figure for Barnes, well, it's 93, Journalism 87, but Journalism has not actually run yet as a 3-year-old. He's coming off the Los Al Futurity win. Missed the Bob Lewis Stakes because he was training up, missed a little bit of time due to being ill, but by all accounts seems to be running very well. The son of Curlin, out of Mopatism, very, very solid. Here we go with Bob Baffert dominating the San Felipe. He's won this race 9 times. Imagination last year. Life is Good a few years ago. Authentic, your Kentucky Derby winner in 2020. To name just a few, but for more, we'll take you out to learn more about Barnes.
We got Jimmy Barnes. They had an assistant trainers Hall of Fame. He'd be the first one inducted.
You have seen him at the side of many of Bob Baffert's greats. Jimmy Barnes, Baffert's long-standing assistant trainer, now has a horse named in his honor. Barnes.
We've seen something special, the $3.2 million Barnes, and there's the man he's named after.
I'm very honored that they would name a horse after me. Jimmy Barnes. I mean, this guy has done more as an assistant than just about anybody in the game.
A star in the making and named after one of the hardest working in thoroughbred racing.
Point blank, without Jimmy Barnes, there is no Bob Baffert in terms of how we speak about his name and his success rate. So how great that a $3.2 million horse named for the great right-hand man for Bob Baffert. That is going to be later on today at Santa Anita Park. But as I mentioned previously, Gulfstream Park, they're about to get going with the opener of their card. 5 minutes to post for the first race. We'll take you back trackside with Matt and Larry.
Curtis, thank you. Again, we mentioned at the top, this could be a group of fillies that will be in stakes races down the road, but many of them are going to be making their career debut here this afternoon. Not this filly, Motown Omi, First time start was back in December. This will be the 3-year-old debut going out for the Michael Yates barn.
One of the many first-time starters will be the next one we see. Feasible, one of 2